Welcome to Ninerology, Faithful in the Trenches. I'm your host, Alan Huerta, and it's the Divisional Round. We're going to talk about all things 49ers, Packers. We're going to talk about the keys to the game, keys to victory. We're going to share our prediction. We're going to talk about Joe Barry versus Kyle Shanahan. What does that matchup look like? Amy Trask. Who is Amy Trask? Let's talk about Amy Trask and her comments on Brock Purdy. And lastly, are the 49ers underestimating the Green Bay Packers? But first off, let's talk about the keys to the game. Now, one thing we know is it's going to be raining on this Saturday evening during the game. We know that the Packers are coming off of a huge win against the Cowboys. And so the question is, are they primed for success against the 49ers? There's a few big keys, and one is they have a short week. They have 6 days to prep. And while the 49ers have had 3 weeks since their last meaningful game. Now, one thing to look at is on that 6 days rest, they are traveling back from Dallas and then traveling back to Santa Clara. And so there's a lot of traveling for Green Bay. Granted, they are the youngest team in the NFL, so it might be a little bit easier for them, but that's a lot of traveling without a bye week, without any of that. And then the 49ers are the healthiest they have ever been, minus Talanoa Hufanga, who's out, and Clelin Ferrell, who's not going to be playing in this game. But everybody else was full go. You got Eric Armstead back to help anchor that defensive line, because I'm going to tell you this. The biggest key to the game, to winning this game, is stopping the run and running the ball. You have to do those two things, especially with the weather. It's slated to be raining throughout the entire game, which means it is going to be a pound and ground. It's going to be an ugly game. It's going to be one in the trenches, and I think this ultimately favors the 49ers. The reason why is because they are rested. Green Bay is not rested. They are coming off of 6 days of rest. They're coming off, even though they had a huge game. Talk about that defense was on the field for 89 plays. Now, granted, that wasn't all of their starters, but they played the majority of the game. But then they're traveling back and forth. No bye. The 49ers are fresh. And guess what? Their bread and butter is running the ball. And so Christian McCaffrey has led the league in rushing since week 1. And so that's going to be the key, running the ball and stopping the run. And I think stopping the run starts with that front. Eric Armstead, you got to come back. I know there might be a little bit of rust, but you had a couple padded practices. We need you to step up. Nick Bosa, it's time to earn that contract. You got to step up. Chase Young, Clelin Ferrell's not playing. That means you're going to have much more snaps to kind of make a name for yourself. It is a contract year for you. It's time to step up. And I think that's the key to winning this game. My prediction for this game, it's gonna be a slugfest, but I'm guessing a higher scoring game. My guess is 37-27 49ers. So they will cover that spread, but that's my guess. And 2 breakout players that I'm guessing for today. One, Christian McCaffrey. That's why I got my McCaffrey jersey. The second one is George Kittle. The reason why I say George Kittle is I did some research into Kyle Shanahan versus Joe Barry and kind of the history of their matchup. They've only played twice, 2 meaningful games. They had 1 preseason, but 2 meaningful games. The first one was back in 2021. It's when Aaron Rodgers was still with Green Bay. Green Bay pulled it out. It was the 3rd game of the regular season, 30-28. Aaron Rodgers came back at the end. And the last one was the Divisional Round last year. And so that's where it was snowing, all of that stuff. And so the big key here is that in both of those games, the 49ers could not run the ball. They could not run the ball against Joe Barry's defense. Call it up to scheme, call it up to there was no Christian McCaffrey. There's so many different things that you can look at. Or Christian McCaffrey wasn't fully healthy at the time. But one thing we do know is that George Kittle went off in both games. I think he is going to be the key because Green Bay's weaknesses is their linebackers. And what does Kyle Shanahan like to do? He likes to exploit the weaknesses. So my guess is the 2 players that have a big game are Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. They are going to be the keys. I don't think Green Bay has the tools that they need to stop them to. And if they did, you got Debo, who's still around the corner waiting to make his presence known. So I'm thrilled for this game. I think it's going to be a bit harder. I don't think the 49ers are underestimating Green Bay. When you think back to the Super Bowl, when George Kittle 49ers were playing the Chiefs, George Kittle, he had a very famous quote, and we're going to play that for you right now.
I will be back here. I will be back here, and I will be back with a vengeance.
Back with a vengeance. Can you believe that? I think that just kind of sets up the persona for this team. That really explains it. They are focused. They are laser focused. They're not looking ahead to the Super Bowl, but they know what they need to do here and now to eventually get to that point. And so I don't think any 49er, especially the veterans, they're not going to make sure that any of the young guys are going to take Green Bay for granted. I think they're going to prepare. They're going to be well prepared. They are going to have a solid game plan, and they're going to come out punching, and they're not going to look back. And so I think Kittle's going to have a huge game. He's going to be the one to set the tone, and he's going to be back, and he's going to be back with a vengeance. Also, let's talk about Brock Purdy. Earlier this week, Amy Trask, who was a former Raider executive, had some interesting comments to say, which kind of went viral. Let's check it out together.
We have 4 games this week. That means we have 8 quarterbacks. Did that math all by myself.
Good girl.
4 games, 8 quarterbacks, 7 terrific quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy.
Yeah. Let's just say that explains a lot more on why the Raiders are committed to excellence. When one of your highest executives doesn't think that Brock Purdy is one of the top ones in top quarterbacks left in the playoffs. She put Baker Mayfield ahead of Brock Purdy. She put Jordan Love ahead of Brock Purdy. She put Jared Goff ahead of Brock Purdy. Now let's be realistic. Brock Purdy has done more than the 3 that I just named in playoffs alone. You can say, okay, well, now you're comparing him because he's got a big solid team. He's got all of those things around him, the tools and pieces. Yes, but so do the other quarterbacks. All of the NFL teams have the exact same salary cap to build their teams. Brock Purdy has taken this team, and he proved it in the playoffs last year, so he is battle tested. And not only that, he's done it this year, and he's only improved. He's led the league in yards per attempt. Now, that's not a system quarterback. That's not you have 7 great quarterbacks and then Brock Purdy. And as she mentioned, later on, she's like, I'm not saying he's not good. He's just not the other 7. She doesn't put him in the same class. And again, that's why the Raiders have been committed to excellence all of these years and haven't sniffed the Super Bowl in I don't know how long. And so, Raider Nation, if you've been wondering why have we settled and been committed to mediocrity, you now know why. Your top brass thinks that Brock Purdy isn't even in the conversation of the other 8. You put Brock Purdy in a Raiders uniform, you put him in any other uniform, you put him where Jordan Love's at, he's going to succeed. So I think ultimately what this is she was looking for clicks, she was looking to go viral. Not just that, she's a Raider at heart, and so she said what she said, but ultimately, if that's truly what she believes, that explains the issues in Raider Nation. It starts from the top and funnels down. Hopefully, Antonio Pierce helps turn things around for you guys, but now you understand just kind of the cluelessness from the top brass all the way down. And so, Brock Purdy, we're rooting for you. I'm hoping that you saw those comments and that today, even in the rain, you prove that, guess what? You are the class of the playoffs. You're here to stay. And guess what? You're here to bring home that 6th Lombardi. Well, that's all we have for you today, and looking forward to a great game. Catch us after the game for our thoughts and key takeaways, and we'll catch you